goes.
I think when Ben 10 came out on Cartoon Network in 2005, it really was a breath of fresh air thanks to its unique concept about a kid that is able to transform into a bunch of cool aliens. Even though I was no longer a child during Ben 10's peak of popularity, I could see its appeal for younger children, and I kind of low-key loved it as well. The aliens themselves were really well designed, varied, and possessed unique powers that allowed Ben to tackle a number of situations. Now, as the series would go on, the cast would be bolstered by more allies and villains, even as the lore itself expanded more. Earlier in May 6th of this year, Dynamite Entertainment would launch what it dubbed as the official canon-inspired reboot of the series, in the form of a bunch of ongoing comics written by Joey Casey. To my surprise, the series is clearly aimed at a new target audience of teens and young adults, with its gritty visual tones and themes. It completely reimagines the origin story of Ben Tennyson and is a far cry from the children's cartoon that we're familiar with. So, join me today in this video as I explore this much darker and grittier Ben 10, which has been presented to us after nearly a decade of absence. Without further ado, let's begin. The beginning of the saga. The comic book kicks off with Vilgax, the main baddie of the series, gazing into the cosmos from his flagship as he delivers his opening villain monologue. I guess while the art style might have changed, good old Vilgax seems to be the same megalomaniac star conqueror we see in the original show. In this opening scene, he is presented as this undefeated and unchallenged warrior who is roving through space, conquering worlds, while looking for a worthy challenger or a weapon that might test him. In some ways, this version of Vilgax reminded me of Battle Beast from the Omni-Man series. We find out that Vilgax has learned of one such weapon, and it seems that his main focus now lies on discovering it. I noticed that the comic immediately diverges from the original show here, considering the fact that in the cartoon, Vilgax has already tracked down the Omnitrix and is in a battle with a convoy tasked with protecting and transporting the device. The scene then changes to a wilderness near Mount Rushmore in America, where two young kids are sitting with their grandpa under the starlight around a bonfire. I think many of the fans of the original series will instantly recognize the figures of Ben Tennyson, his cousin sister Gwen, and their grandfather Max. It seems the three of them are out on a camping trip together for their summer holidays. I like the fact that the cousins are still bickering as usual, although both of them look much younger than they do in the TV show, at least to me. I also felt that this scene really seems to be pushing this dynamic between the cousins even more than in the original show. Moving on, we find out that Grandpa Max has issued a no-device rule, so that the three of them can bond together in peace with nature, even as the old man tries to convince himself that he'd be able to bear with their childish shenanigans for the next 3 months. The bickering between the two crosses the line when Gwen tells Ben that his parents had simply dumped him with their grandfather. Clearly hurt by her words, the kid storms off into the forest, while at the same time the American army detects an unidentified object hurtling towards the Earth on their radar. Apparently, this object has an alien signature that doesn't exist on the spectrum that we're familiar with, and the crazy part is that it was going to make planetfall soon. We then switch back to Ben, who has kind of cooled down after realizing that he is completely lost in the forest, although it doesn't stop him from continuing to have a snarky attitude towards Gwen. Even as he is muttering about how much his cousin must be thrilled with his current predicament, Ben notices a bright light streaking through the sky towards him, and before he is even able to do anything, it crashes right where he is standing, sending him flying across the floor. Just as he gathers his senses, Ben notices a massive crater has formed near him, caused by the impact of whatever it was that landed near. As a disoriented yet curious Ben approaches the crater, he realizes too late that a thick vine-like object has begun to emerge from the crash site. Once again, if I recall correctly, in the original show, it was Ben who descends into the crater and reaches for the Omnitrix. Before he can do anything, it has wrapped itself around the young boy's forearm. I love how they made this bonding scene with the Omnitrix have that slight horror element, which was reminiscent to me of a symbiote bonding with their host from Marvel Comics. No sooner has this object, which you and I know to be the Omnitrix, bonded with Ben, the army comes swarming towards the crater. I feel like it's worth noting that in the cartoon there is no signs of the army during this point in the story. However, by that time Ben had already snuck back into the woods. Grandpa Max has, in the meantime, left behind Gwen in their RV while he looks for Ben in the forest, but little does he know that Ben is in a whole world of trouble. Even as the kid stumbles through the forest trying to get this bracelet from outer space off his arm, he stumbles upon a very earthly threat in the form of a giant grizzly bear. I love this particular panel because it's a homage to the original show, where Gwen tells Max that Ben might have become bear food after the protagonist runs away from the campsite. For some reason, this bear seems to be augmented with technology and is clearly pissed off. To make matters worse, the Omnitrix on Ben's arm begins to glow as if reacting to the threat, but of course, our hero has no idea about what it does at this point, but he is soon going to find out. Just as the grizzly moves in for the kill, we see Ben's body go through a horrific transformation as he changes into the Tetraman, which OG fans know as the alien forearms. Once again in the comics, Ben actually transforms into Heat Blast first. Despite being taken aback by his new form, Ben seems to quickly take this new situation at a stride as he strikes back at the onrushing grizzly. Soon Ben in his forearms form and the grizzly begin battling it out in the middle of the forest. Unfortunately for the kid, something happens and he begins to transform back into his ordinary form. Having been robbed of the power to fight the beast, it soon becomes a mad dash, as Ben tries his best to not get his head ripped off by the bear. Thankfully, the Omnitrix begins to glow once more and Ben seems to have realized that his transformation was tied to the machine on his arm, as he slams his palm on it ready to go for round 2. However, instead of transforming into forearms, this time Ben takes the shape of the flaming pyronite called Heat Blast. Now, I have to say this, say what you want about this new visual style for this comic book series, but the aliens look so badass. Gone are the children's cartoon vibe in its place. You have character designs you would find in another popular, mature, and gritty titles, and I, for one, am here for it. Despite his initial confusion at having transformed into a bipedal flaming humanoid, Ben once again quickly comes to terms with the situation and uses his powers to fight the bear. Thankfully, since it is a wild animal, the grizzly gets frightened by the flames and runs away, but unfortunately for Ben, his pyrotechnics had caught the attention of the army, who once again arrives at his location only to find nothing. In the next panel, we see Gwen trying to contact Max, who, as I told you earlier, is out in the forest looking for Ben. We find that Max has a secret, because apparently he had been expecting something to happen, the only thing being that the something had happened earlier than expected. I love how the series introduces intrigue into the narrative, as Grandpa Max is already given a cool and mysterious vibe. The scene then changes to outer space once again as alarms begin blaring around Vilgax's ship. The reason for the commotion being that his crew had tracked the energy signal of the Omnitrix. Finally, it soon becomes clear that things are beginning to heat up as Vilgax sets up his ship to warp jump in order to follow the coordinates to the object, which he claims is the key to ruling the universe, even as the curtain falls on the first issue. I would just like to end this video by saying how I love the new alien models and Vilgax's design. The villain straight up looks like a grizzled space marauder who is not afraid to get his hands dirty. There's this scene of ominous menace that I felt immediately from him, which was missing in the original show. I never thought I'd live to see a day where Ben 10, the ultimate kids cartoon show, would be given this mature and gritty makeover. However, from what I can tell, beneath that fresh coat of paint, the story still retains its childish humor, because the protagonist is, well, still a kid after all. What do you guys think of Ben 10's new look? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. For now though, it's time for me to say goodbye. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome content. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.